listen to your voice. Are you there? Akshat? Rishi?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Where were you? You were not there in front of the PC?
When, ma'am?
Okay, no, you didn't respond quickly, so I just. Fine. So, welcome everyone to the class on MMM. You kindly mute your voice. Okay, so welcome everyone to the class. In the last session, we just briefed out the pattern of the questions, what we get in our module 5, and just went on with what you have studied. I just heard from your what you have understood basically related to module 5. So now we have to go ahead with module 4. So before that, I just wanted to tell you one thing. I just wanted to finalize the IA marks for you all. So I was thinking about to give the quiz. So let me omit the quiz part for module 5. I will just take the interactions in my classes only. So I don't want you to burden again to take with the quizzes or any other extra assignments. So you see that whatever assignments has been posted until now in the Google Classroom, if any pending work you have, kindly do it up at the earliest. So before 5th, I need to finalize the IA marks. So today is already 2nd, and you need to submit the lab records also for batch B3. So you please manage your time and see that you submit the record as well as duly pending assignments to be posted to the Google Classroom at the earliest. Okay. So what we dealt about in module 4, anyone can tell me out? Akshat, you're there? Hello. Okay, let me. Hello, Akshat, you're there? I hope the screen is visible to you all.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah. So we just briefed out of about module 5 in our last class. So today I just wanted to focus on module 4. So our module 4 had two bifurcations. One was related to measurement system and its basic concepts of how we do different type of measurements. So here we spoke about what is the main importance of measurement in actual life. So why it is needed. So which are the generalized measurement system. I hope you have written that in your internals also. And we studied about what are the important characteristics that are associated related to static as well as dynamics. So we studied the importance of accuracy, precision, what is the importance of calibration, threshold, hysteresis nature for different materials. What do you mean by repeatability? Usually in the pattern of examination, they might ask you some brief description about either one, or they can provide you 10 marks question directly for defining these terminologies with little bit of explanation. Suppose if they give accuracy, precision, calibration, and threshold, they ask you to explain what you mean by it, and they just shoot out a marks of either 8 or 10 marks. So it is easy to score in that way. Or sometimes they can ask you to describe totally the characteristics associated in measuring the measurements with respect to accuracy or with respect to precision. Or if they tell you any device, if they provide you to explain the measurement characteristics, whether it is applicable to static measurement or dynamic measurement, you should be aware of. Static measurements you will get when the value will not change with respect to time. If you are getting the values changeable with respect to time, then those are associated with respect to our dynamic characteristics. So that also we studied, and also we dealt about various errors in measurements. So that errors classification we had done long back in module 1 also, but here in depth we just studied about the errors which come across in measurement, and classification of errors also we did up. And later we came down to transducers. What are its functions? Why a transducer is needed? What is meant by a transducer efficiency? And only using a single device, you cannot convert the required input or the given input into the required output. So various stages of transducer will be there, like stage 1 transducer, stage 2 transducer, and stage 3 transducers. So all those we studied. What is the importance of stage 1 transducer? So which helps in sensing the physical quantities, so that that could be converted in the stage 2 in order to get the required output in the stage 3 device. Similarly, for stage 2 is mainly applicable for converting the received physical input into the required output signal, yeah, voltage, or whatever electrical characteristics is needed. Sometimes you might need only the output in the readable form. Sometimes you need the output which has to be recorded. Sometimes you need the output which has to be transmitted to some other device. Like, so based on that, you will select the third stage of transducers. So all those we studied, what is the importance of primary and secondary transducers. We also dealt about different classifications of transducers. So under electrical, under mechanical, under electronic transducers also we had classifications what we dealt. And also we had an relative comparison between each type of transducers. We cannot say that electrical transducer is always stands first than that of the others. Obviously electrical transducers are used mainly, but depending upon the type of application you need, type of output signal you need, you have to go with the type of transducers which are needed. So all these things we studied in our topic about transducers. Then we dealt related to intermediate modifying and terminating devices. So these mainly spoke about the third stage transducers. So where it helps in receiving the signal from the second stage transducers and convert that into the required readable form, yeah, recordable, yeah, transmitting to some other device. In that we came across what do you mean by mechanical system exactly, what are the problems associated in sensing the physical quantity and converting that into the output signal we dealt about. And then we studied what do you mean by electrical intermediate modifying devices. So for these devices to run successfully, and circuitry system is always essential. So we studied about different circuit systems like input circuitry system. I'm sorry. Then we dealt about ballast circuit, how these circuits could be connected to the transducer in order to get the required output, right? And the output what we receive will not be always in an amplified way. We need to amplify the signal in order to measure it, and hence we need the electronic amplifiers. So how these electronic amplifiers are connected to the given circuitry systems, that also we studied about. And we spoke about different terminating devices which are available, like piezoelectric load cells and any other type of terminating devices. And also we studied about cathode ray oscilloscope. What is the importance of cathode ray oscilloscope? What are its advantages, disadvantages, and some limitations also. So this was the entire description of the module 4. It is a huge chapter compared to the other modules also, because you have 3 sections and there are many options for the question to shoot up. Usually they focus on these 2 parts. You will get one question by default from this static and dynamic characteristics, and always one question shooted up through transducers, and one question related to oscilloscope or sometimes oscillographs. So it will be changing. So you should be aware you have 3 topics in module 4. You should be thorough enough. If you don't want to lose the marks in module 4, you need to focus on all the 3 sections. So related to that, I just want to share some of the questions which are frequently being asked in the question paper. So just a second.
Ma'am,
Yes.
I have some doubts in the telemetry part.
Yeah, please tell me.
Ma'am, I'm not able to understand the telemetry thing. I read it twice and thrice, but I'm still not able to understand.
Okay, just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
In module 4, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I explain you right away, Jan?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, I
Sure.
will just share. Just a second. Yeah. Is the screen visible, Jan?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I'll just, instead of going and digging the theory thing, let me make you realize how it works exactly. You can just see a block diagram here, right? So the functioning of a telemetry system will be classified into 3 sections. So this is the first stage, the second stage, and the third stage. So here in the first stage, you will be having an transducer of stage 1. So whose work is only to sense the measuring quantities which are given to it as an input signal, the physical quantities which has to be sensed. So that will be sensed by using a sensor in the transducer stage 1, which will be called as our primary detector. Okay, so then you have a subsection which is called as intermediate stage. So anything, if you need to convert from one energy to the other which is needed, it has to pass through all the 3 stages. So stage 1 is for transducer 1, stage 2 is nothing but our intermediate stage, and stage 3 transducer always focus related to the output or the output device which has to be connected. So this is common everywhere when you use an transducer. But now you should understand what is the main function of the telemeter. So telemeter here comes in our intermediate stage. So stage 1 transducer will sense the physical quantity and it will convert into the signals which are readable by the telemeter, but it will not be the direct voltage what you get it, so that you will be getting only at the end device. So here you will be having an intermediate stage which will be having 3 devices or the 3 channels which will be correlated to each other. So one is a telemeter transmitter, the second one is the telemeter channel, and the third one is a telemeter receiver. So this telemeter transmitter will receive the sensed signals of the physical entities to the telemeter here, but it cannot directly convert. It has to modify into the readable format. As in computer, only binary codes are understood, 0 and 1. Similarly, the sensed physical quantities will be just transmitted to the transmitter. So transmitter is the first stage of the telemeter. So he just receives whatever signals which are being sensed by our primary detector. So it is directly transmitted to our telemeter. So once it has been received, it has to be modified, right? It has to be converted in a form such that the signals could be converted into the output device, which is understood by the operator to read or measure or to record. So that you will be using an telemeter channel. So it helps in channelizing the received signals in such a way that that is readable by the operator. So until it is channelized, it will fine tune, it will channelize each and every physical quantities. It depends upon which physical quantity you are taking into. So if it is a frequency, it will be of different frequencies and the wavelength what you have to channelize, or if it is of any mechanical input measurements, energy parameters what you are taking. So it depends upon what input signals you are using. So based on that, different channels will be channelized depending upon the transmitter which is sending you the input to this channelizing media. So once this has been channelized, once it has been converted into readable form, so that will be transmitted to the receiver of the telemeter. So this receiver of the telemeter will be having the version of the output which could be read by an operator. It could be an voltage, it could be power, or it could be any electrical characteristics, okay, like piezoelectric charge constants, yeah, dielectric, yeah, conductance, yeah, resistance, whatever you need to measure. It mainly speaks about the electrical characteristics parameters which the operator needs as an output. So that will be ready over here. So that will be later transmitted to the output device. So here output device will be nothing but our third stage transducers, which will help you to record the data or read the data. To read the data, it could be a dial indicator or any other versions. To record, you will be having some storage device which will store the output signals. Or else suppose if the output signals what you are getting has to be transmitted to some other device. Suppose you are generating electrical power that has to be transmitted to a battery for storage. Then you will be connecting a generator or a battery here so that it could store the generated electrical signals, and it could be used further whenever it has been needed. So based on the requirement, you will be having the end device here. So which can record or which can transmit the output signal to the any other device as per the requirement. So this is how an telemetry system works, and its main work is focused only on the intermediate stage, which is related to our stage 2 transducer. So this is about the working of telemetry. Hope it is clear, Jayant.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I just wanted to brief out the question paper pattern. Just a second. Yeah. So here in the last paper, last year's paper, you can see related to our module 4. So you have very simple questions being asked like define measurement, differentiate the direct method and indirect method of measurements. So what we have dealt. And also they have asked you the generalized measuring system with a block diagram. So this is for a little bit lengthy what you have to write, and it is associated for 10 marks and not for 8 marks. So even though they don't ask you the block diagram, when it is for 10 marks, you see that you draw the sketch for GMS and you show the explanation. So likewise, always you'll have one question on transducer. Sometimes they can ask you a particular transducer, or sometimes they can ask you the classification and give examples. So students will be familiar with the classifications and they explain the process. But giving examples, sometimes they won't be knowing exactly the examples. In that case, you lose the marks if it is asked with respect to example for each category. It is only classification. The entire thorough classification, just name one example, you'll get 10 marks. But you should be knowing the examples with respect to each and every classification of transducers. Or else, this is the simplest thing which has been happened. So in 2-3 papers, they have just asked you to define the following terms: sensitivity, repeatability. So these are the static and the dynamic characteristics in our module 4. So instead of asking in depth what do you mean by each and every type of static characteristics, they have just asked you to explain the following terms. So it is for 10 marks, you have 3, 4, 5 questions. So I hope like 2 marks will be assigned for each subsection. So based on 2 marks, you should be able to explain what do you mean by sensitivity, repeatability, linearity, threshold, or the least count. And then usually they ask one question related to CRO, which is a cathode ray oscilloscope. Here they haven't mentioned you to like whether you need to write the advantages, limitations, or drawbacks, anything. It is just explaining the working of cathode ray oscilloscope. So you just explain with a neat block diagram how the working of it will be done, and also the construction part of it you can explain since it is for 10 marks. So this is in the one paper what they have given. And if we go for the other paper, it's of July 2019, and here also you can see they have asked you the GMS, which is our generalized measurement system. The pattern here is again the same. They have asked you some of the static and dynamic characteristics. So like you need to define accuracy, threshold, calibration, hysteresis. Hysteresis nature you have different for different materials. It's better you show the hysteresis loop and explain. And it is only, see here, it is for 5 marks, not for 10. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 subtopics. So based on 1 marks, you can just define it easily so that you'll get 5 marks for this. And later again, they have asked what is transducer. You can define, sketch and explain the principle of electronic transducer. In previous thing, they asked you the classification of entire transducers with an example. But now here the pattern is changed. They are asking you specifically to explain the principle of electronic transducer. So you have to draw the sketch of electronic transducer, explain the working principle of it, how does it operate, and also list out the advantages associated. Don't write down the disadvantages, because instead of that, they have asked you to define what is a transducer. Please write in a proper way so that it will be understandable for the examiner who evaluates. Since it is mostly more part of theoretical thing, you should be able to write, present in such a way that you will be able to gain marks. Just stick on to the question asked. Don't write anything which is not related to the question. So this is for 8 marks. And again, usually they ask either of the circuit, either the input circuitry system, your Ballas circuit, whatever. So either of the two, usually it will be shooted for marks of 8. So in that case, you please draw the circuit diagram for Ballas circuit, why it is being used, and explain the working of a Ballas circuit. And then here they have asked you the telemetry system. So please draw the block diagram and explain the telemetry system. How does it work? So block diagram might be having a marks of 2 and explanation might be having for 4 marks. So please correlate accordingly. Even if it is a block diagram, don't draw a rough sketch. Kindly draw an enlarged proper diagram so that it is readable and neatly presented. And the last question is again related to the stylus type of oscillography. So in this way, you will get the question related to module 4. And now I just wanted to have discussions with the people who haven't turned up until now? Akshat, Jayant, hello, you're here.
Ma'am, can you just briefly discuss our hysteresis, like analysis of different hysteresis loops?
Okay, just a second, I will share. Just give me 2 minutes. Is my PPT readable, visible? Tarun?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So we have dealt about different hysteresis loop and why it is needed, and it depends upon what input you're giving and what is being sensed, and when the applied magnetic force, applied electrical force is removed, how the nature of the curve will be. So based on that, we will define our hysteresis for the given material. Okay, so basic terminologies you have to understand related to our hysteresis loop. So one is the saturation, the other part is the remanence, the coercivity, what you have to understand, right? So for the hysteresis nature to be understood, you can either apply the magnetic force or the electric force as an input signal. So you'll be having a device. Suppose if you consider an piezoelectric material, it is sensible for electrical field. Why? Because it will be having the materials, the dipoles. So when you apply the electric field, it gets polarized. So that when you apply the field, it will get polarized and it provides you the input electrical signals. So once the input electrical signal has been sensed by the piezoelectric material, after removing of the electric field also, that material will be able to retain some amount of electric field in it. So what is that? So the remaining amount of electric field in the material will be called to be as the remanence parameter. Okay, so it could be a magnetic field or an electric field. So at the saturation, you'll be having the maximum. So these are the parameters. So now I'll explain you one by one. Okay. So suppose we'll just speak about, so it depends upon which material you're using. It could be an dielectric material, it could be an conducting material, it could be an semiconducting material, or it could be a magnetic material also. Suppose if we are now speaking for magnetic material, right? What happens? So usually you will start up with applying the magnetic force. So when you apply the magnetic force, the curve increases gradually and it reaches its saturation point. So once he reaches the saturation point, so this is the maximum magnetic field associated in that material when you apply the magnetic field. So once you remove the magnetic field, what happens? The amount of magnetic content that was stored in the material will come down drastically and it intercepts along the y-axis at a particular point. So this is nothing but the retentivity or the remanence. So the amount of magnetic field stored in the material even when the magnetic field or the magnetic force is removed. Okay. So this is nothing but the word called remanence. So it is a measure of the remaining magnetization when the driving field is removed or dropped to zero. Okay. So this word you have to understand. And later, after some time, it comes drastically down. So when it comes here, it is along our x-axis again. So you will again reapply the field. So when you reapply the field, what happens is it shows the magnified value at the saturation in the negative way, in the reverse field, because you're applying the field in the reverse direction. So you'll get the same trend of curve what you were getting here in the first quadrant, similarly in the opposite trend. So you will get the saturation peak here, and the direction of the magnetic field which is at the saturation level will be opposite to that of the direction of the saturation what you achieved in the first quadrant over here. So it will be totally negative because the field applied, the magnetic field applied will be in the reverse direction. So once it reaches the maximum peak value, then again you release the magnetic field. So when you release the magnetic field, what happens is the same trend, the curve comes back over here. After removal of the magnetic field, the magnetic energy which was associated in the material drastically reduces and it intercepts the y-axis here again. So this remanence value, what you get at this intercept will be again in a negative value. Okay, so this is the amount of magnetic field stored in the body after removal of the reverse magnetic field. Okay, so then when this is the amount which it can retain for a certain period of time. So once that certain period of time is lapsed, it will come back to the x-axis where it is again nullified. Okay, so this is the path, and again when it reaches this stage, you will again reapply the magnetic field. So again it increases and reaches the saturation level. So it will be the positive way of value what you get when you apply the field in the positive direction. So this is in the reverse direction. So same thing, it goes on and on and on until and unless the required remanent value, the polarized value and the coercive value is been reached. So this happens the same even if it is an piezoelectric material. Okay, so here we call it as coercive field. So this is the remanent value and this is the saturated value. If this is for electrical signal, this is for magnetic signal. So it depends upon which type of material you are using, whether it is dielectric or piezoelectric. If it is a conductive material, the loop will not be like this. It will be in a bulged way. Okay, if I just graph and show you, it will be in a I'll just show the image of it later. It will be in a bulged way if it is a conductive material. So by seeing the hysteresis loop, you can tell that it is not an ferroelectric material. It is totally a conductive material. If it is a ferroelectric material, then you will get this type of nature. Okay, if it is a magnetic material, this will be the shape of the hysteresis loop what we get. If it is a conductive material, it will be a bulged loop. So in that you won't be able to determine the saturated point and remanence point very keenly because it will be bulged and it will come in this way. It will come like this. So you will not be able to identify the remanent point and the saturation point. Okay. So this is how, by looking the loop, you can identify which material is it. Usually we determine these terminologies, remanence, coercive, saturation peaks for magnetic materials as well as for ferroelectric material. And this ferroelectric material, piezoelectrics are the subclassifications in the ferroelectric material. So these terminologies you have to understand. So if they ask you, you can just explain the graph, draw the graph and explain it. So this is about the hysteresis, and you should understand why an instrument is to be used to measure the hysteresis nature of an given material. So what are the reasons this hysteresis come across into? So all these things you should be able to read, understand and replicate the same in your examination.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
the graphs for the hysteresis that is there, like, is this the one for theoretical or the practical one also has the same?
No. Actually, the theoretical, see, if the practical one, right, you will be having the readings here. What is the electric signal you are applying? So you will be having some volts of electrical input. So here you will be having positive values. Here you will be having negative values. And what are the retained values of electric field? Yeah, magnetic field will be displayed over here. So you will be having the readings of it. This is just a theoretical picturized graph. How does it look for electric field application and for magnetic field application? If you need practical one, you'll be having the readings across both the scales. So that will be done by the people who do a study on magnetic materials and ferroelectric materials. So if you need those data, I can share you later after some time.
Ma'am, can we make a comment about the conductivity of a material by looking at the electrical hysteresis curve? Like, we can judge the material like it's a conductor or piezoelectric. So, is there any material like that lies within the range of piezoelectric and conductors?
See, basically, we have a classification, it is dielectric, it is conducting, and it is semiconducting material. And what we are speaking about piezoelectric, these are all dielectric materials. So it will not be having any conductivity in it. So when it is purely an insulator, when it is purely an dielectric material, right, but those materials will be having the dipoles in it. So you have to do the polarization first in order to stimulate some amount of conductivity in the material. So you do the polarization, then dipole moments get oriented. So when the dipoles are arranged, if you apply any load, then due to that subjected load, the dipole orients and it helps in transferring the electrical signal to the surface. So that helps in converting the stress applied into electrical signal in case of piezoelectric material. So that helps in providing you the piezoelectric charge coefficients and other electrical characteristics. If you add some dopants into the material to make it conductive, so then what happens? This is the regular hysteresis loop. Then the given loop gets started bulging out. So it won't be in the regular trend how it is. It started bulging out because it is becoming a conducting material. We doesn't use this hysteresis nature to analyze for an conducting material basically. So, but still, if you try to plot the graph, then by seeing the graph, you can tell that it is a conducting material and it is not a dielectric or a ferroelectric material. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes. Any other doubt related to module 4? Usually asked error and its classifications, so kindly go through it. Transducer, how the basic function of the transducer is, difference between active and passive transducer, primary and secondary, what are the importance of stage 1, what are its, sometimes I can ask you to name the sensing devices which are being used in transducer stage 1. You should be knowing, right? Examples, in one of the question they have asked you the examples, right? You should be knowing the name of the devices which are basically under transducer stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, all. So under mechanical transducers, you have classifications. Bourdon tube also sometimes been asked long back ago. So you should be knowing the importance of diaphragm, why it is being used.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
like in the question, if they ask like what are the different types of transducer, like should we write active, passive, or primary, secondary?
See, these are the, I told you in the beginning, we have a huge classification of it. So initially, when they ask you what do you mean by a transducer with a block diagram explanation, you will show this. So this is in general classification. You have to speak about the primary and the secondary transducers. And also you just check about the marks which is being assigned. So based on that, you speak about primary and secondary. So under primary and secondary, again, you have different transducers which come across transducer stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So what we have studied, you have to then speak. So here, right, so mechanical transducers, again, you have classification. So these are main classifications. Initially, you are classifying that in a general form. Then you will come into its main classification. Mechanical, you have to explain. Then electrical. So under electrical, we have different devices. So you have to give the classifications for this and examples for these. So this has been asked for 10 marks. So different type of transducers. So main classification, you have mechanical, capacitance, electrical, electronic transducers. So these are the main classifications of the transducers. Capacitive transducers also. So, and you should be knowing, see, piezoelectric transducers, and you should be knowing example for each type of transducers. And related to photoelectric also we have. So these are the major classifications. That is in general classification, what it is being told. Any other doubts?
Like if the question is for 10 marks, we only have to name and give one line explanations for it.
Yeah, in one of the question paper, they have asked you to give the entire classification of transducer. For 10 marks it is. And you have to just name one example for each. So in that case, what you do is just speak a single statement related to what you mean by transducer, give the general classification, active, passive, then come to the actual classification of the transducer, right from mechanical, electrical, electronics, photoelectric, piezoelectric transducers. Give the examples for each categories. If you have any subsections in each main classification, kindly show the subclassification of the transducers also. Every classification related to transducer has to be mentioned when it is for 10 marks, and you have to quote example for each type of transducer. Then only you can claim 10 marks. And sometimes they'll ask you the explanation, working principle, advantage, limitations of a single type of transducer. If they ask you in the other way, you should be knowing on the whole the huge classification as well as its examples. Okay.
Yes. And this once, can you just in brief explain the vacuum tube transducer?
Which one?
The vacuum tube. I'm not able to totally understand the vacuum tube.
Just a second. It's not here actually. I don't think so. It is in. Hello. Am I audible? Yeah, vacuum tube transducer, that is not there in your syllabus. Can you have a look?
I'll just check now one.
Yeah, Jen, please check. It's not there. Basically, you have a primary, secondary transducers, electrical transducer, its subclassification, mechanical, electronic, and relative comparison of each transducers. But still, we have dealt up with optical type of transducers also related to if you just need an information related to vacuum tube transducers, right, it will be basically an second stage transducer which helps in converting the received physical entity into the readable electronic output signal characteristics. So where you'll be having the vacuum tube transducers, so which helps in modifying the required physical entity into the output signal at the inert atmosphere. It depends upon the physical parameters which has to be converted into the electrical characteristics. Some we can do it in room temperature, some in inert atmosphere, some in organ atmosphere. So when you need to convert the conversions of the physical quantity at inert and organ atmosphere, you need to have a vacuum chamber where it helps in storing these parameters without the external conversion with the atmosphere. At that stage, we need a vacuum chamber in the modifying unit. So in that case, we use the vacuum based type of transducer, which helps in converting the signal of the physical quantity to the readable output signal under the control media of organ inert atmosphere. Only in these cases you need vacuum based transducer. In other cases, directly you will convert the physical quantity into the readable output characteristics at room temperature. There the vacuum based transducer will not come into picture. So always if you need, that will be under stage 2 category. But I don't feel so you have that in your syllabus.
Actually, I think you mean vacuum tube amplifiers, ma'am. It's in your presentation only, ma'am.
Yes, vacuum tube amplifier.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. No problem. So we just brushed out what you mean by amplifiers also. You know that the voltage signal, what it is being sensed will be very less. And to read that, some amplifiers are essential. So we use different type of amplifiers. So in that, now we need to explain what you mean by vacuum tube amplifiers. So what happens and why there is a need for vacuum tube amplifiers, you should understand. So these, before that, yeah, this is just the ballast circuit. So these amplifiers are mainly used to provide the voltage gain or the current gain and the impedance transformation. Why? Because even if it is a piezoelectric material or any other dielectric or ferroelectric material, the amount of voltage gain will be very much less. We need to amplify it by using some amplifiers. So usually we go with electronic amplifiers so that we can gain in the voltage or the current or the impedance value. So in these cases, what we do is, in most of the transducers what we have used, either in first, second or third stage, the electrical voltage is the output by the voltage level available from the transducer. So what do you mean by it? In most of the transducers, the electrical voltage will be the output, what we receive. Okay, so based on the available output level, the transducer can read. Suppose if you have a complicated transducer which can even sense the very least value of voltage, so then there is no need of amplifiers. If you are designing the transducers in such a way that it can sense and show the readings of the voltage signal only for higher values, then it cannot sense the lower value. And if you need the values for higher range, you should have some amplifiers embedded along with it, so that it helps in gaining the enhancement in the voltage or the current, so that it helps in increasing the value of it, such that the transducer can sense, record or transmit those values. So it basically depends upon the configuration, the capability of the transducers for which you are using, why you are using. If you need an enhanced values, then you have to go for electronic amplifiers. And the other cases, sometimes the input signal may be used to drive a recorder or some control apparatus. So what happens in this case? In such cases, power must be increased by using either the current or the power amplifiers. So in some of the transducers, what happens is the input signal will be using a drive or a recorder in order to grab the input signal for measuring the current or the power. In that cases, what we have to do is, the power has to be enhanced. For enhancement of that power, we need an amplifier. So at that case, the transducer should be connected with an amplifier so that it increases the current or the power, so that that input signal can be used to drive any instrument. Or for many measuring instrument, you need some power, you need some source, you need some current. So if the current generated at the input is very low, how will you drive an instrument? It should be amplified, right? So that that will be feasible enough to be considered as an input signal. So always amplifiers plays a vital role. So that you should understand. Also sometimes at output, also high output impedance leads to noise. So what do you mean by impedance? The impedance is the amount of electrical characteristics which are being retained in the material even after the removal of the electrical signal. But these impedance values will be associated with the noise signals also. So you should always omit the noise and only retain the impedance value. Hence, it is desirable to include an amplifier which converts high impedance input into a low impedance output. So when it converts an high impedance input to lower impedance output, that shows that it has omitted the noise parameter which was there along with the impedance value. And hence you need amplifier in this way. To enhance and to reduce also, you can go up with the amplifiers. Usually we use the electronic amplifiers to enhance the voltage, the current, and to reduce the output of the impedance values because the noise will be omitted. So these are the reasons why it is needed in order to, just a second, I'm sharing a message. Yeah. So these are the reasons why an amplifier is essential to amplify the electrical signals. So now coming to our vacuum tube amplifier. So in vacuum tube amplifier, we have input signal and we have the energy source, the battery system over here, and we have an vacuum chamber in which you have the cathode and you have a heater which helps in heating the plates. So let us go step by step. So you have just seen the vacuum tube amplifier. How does it look like? So in this, electrons will be emitted from the heated cathode. So you know that you have a heat cathode here. It is connected to an heat supply. So when the heat is supplied to the cathode work is to generate the electrons. So it will generate the electrons, right? And these generated electrons will be attracted by the positively charged plate. So you'll be having the positively charged plate here. So these generated electrons will be attracted by the positive plate. And in between you have a grid which helps in fine tuning the different electrons which are emitted will be transmitted in a proper channel without any variations. And hence we go up with a grid. So the flow of controls, how it is flowing, will be controlled in a fine manner, in a uniform manner. It will make the electrons to pass through the positive charge plate and is negatively charged relative to the cathode. So this negative voltage on the grid is called as bias voltage. So what happens is you'll be having the grid here. So this will make the electrons to pass through the grid and then go to the positive place. So the negative ions which is being generated will be moving in this opposite direction. So this bias in the voltage will be nullified and controlled. Where is that? Yeah. So the flow of electrons is first of all controlled by a grid which is placed in between cathode and the positive plate. And when it flows, it results in negatively charged particles across the cathode when it is passing, right? So due to this grid which helps in fine streaming the flow of the electrons, so a negative charge will be developed across the cathode. So that results in making our bias voltage. So negative voltage on the grid which is generated due to the flow of electrons from the cathode towards the positive plate results in the formation of our bias voltage. So variations in the charge on the grid supplied by the input signal controls the current flow in the plate circuit. So this variation which is generated in the grid will help in controlling the flow of electric current throughout the circuit, because you are not directly streaming out all the electrons to the plate. Sometimes it could be heated to a larger extent, sometimes it could be heated to a lower temperature. So based on the temperature it is being heated, that amount of electrons will be generating and it will be fluctuating. So all those fluctuating, if you make to pass through the positive plate, so you will be having variation in the amount of current flown through the entire circuit. Since you are using a grid over here, irrespective of the variation and fluctuation in the heat which is being generated will be fine tuned, and only a systematic amount of electrons which are generated at a consistent temperature will be made to pass through the electric circuit, and hence there will be a consistency in the flow of current passing through this electric circuit due to the application or due to the usage of grid. Because the negative energy, the negative electrons which are generated towards the cathode plate will be nullified across the grid only. So all the variations related to the voltage will be associated with the bias voltage, and hence you will be having a consistent amount of electron flown in the entire circuit. Yes. So next, the same thing. So here you have the bias voltage. So it is represented by C. So as shown in the figure, C supplies the necessary bias voltage B to the plate supply. So similarly, you should have the necessary voltage supplied to the plate. So that will be given by the bias voltage C. C supplies the necessary bias voltage. B provides the plate supply. So you have the plate B. So this is for positive charge and this is for negative charge. So that's what you have to understand. And you have a eta A which heats the cathode. So you have three sections. I have told you already, eta A to heat the cathode plate, right? And the necessary bias voltage required is being supplied by the voltage across C, and positive charge is supplied to the plate by B. So this illustrates a single stage amplification. So if you need amplification more than a single circuit can give about, then you have to add on these amplifiers in series. So this entire circuit will be having an input and an input signal over here. So that will be connected to the two energy systems, the batteries. One will provide the bias voltage, another one will provide the positive charge for the positive plate. Along with it, you will be having the heat supplier, so which will be varying the current pass through. Okay, so irrespective of the current generation, you will overcome the bias voltage and it will help you to send the required amount of electric current in the circuit. So there will be no variation in the electrical signal which is passing through the circuit. So this helps in amplifying the electrical circuit with an uniform amount of electric current. But the output of the electrical current, what you are getting, if it is not enough, then you have to keep on adding the amplifiers 1, 2, 3 and 4 until and unless the required enhancement in the voltage or the current is been received, so that will be measurable by the operator at the output device, or if it has to be connected to any device for working purpose, then that amount of voltage or electrical signal can be used as an input parameter to make that instrument run. So this is how an vacuum tube operator works. Okay. Hello. Yeah, any other doubts? Hello, Jen. Okay.
No doubt.
Hello.
No doubts, ma'am.
Okay. So like I told that the fifth module I'll be assigning you with the quizzes in before, right? I won't be assigning any quizzes. So I'll be finalizing based on the given assignments. So you people kindly upload all the assignments which are pending from your end. Many have done it almost. Only very few people are having the pending assignments from your end. So you see that you do it, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And before today is second, so fourth, you have to submit your record. Hopefully by third, you see that all the pending assignments you have, kindly keep on posting so that by fifth I can finalize your IMRs.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, fine then. Take care. Bye bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah.